Welcome to Mountain Man Fungi. This is part 3 of Mycoforestry, and if you haven't already, I highly suggest going back and watching parts 1 and 2 as I discuss the ecological and economics of integrating fungi into forestry and logging practices. In this part, I'm going to discuss an aspect of forestry and logging that directly impacts the health, and when it gets out of control, impacts the whole regional forest health and economic profit margins. I'm referring to parasitic fungi. I have spoken to some of the positive sides of parasitic fungi can have, such as creating fire breaks, creating grass exposed to sunlight, which can sustain various biodiversities of herbivores and various other ecosystems. But a parasite is a parasite, and it is harmful to the host tree it infects, harming the health, and will be going to waste by logging companies because it is unusable or undesirable. In this discussion, I'll go through a few types of parasitic fungi and some ways to combat them and hinder their progress, and I'll also go through some common insects that can cause harm and damage to trees. A few big species of parasitic fungi that can cause severe damage to trees are Armillaria, which are the honey mushrooms, Phytophthora ramorum, Heterobasidion anosum, and Phaeolus schwinnitzii. The honey mushroom, Armillaria, typically occurs in coniferous trees in the Rocky and Cascade Mountains. It is a destructive forest disease that can cause shoestring rot, or also called Armillaria root rot. Its hosts are usually balsam fir, Abies balsamifera, birch species such as Betula papyrifera, spruce, picea, pine, pinus, maple trees such as Acer macrophyllum, and oaks, Quercus. This fungus attacks trees when the environmental conditions for the trees are not favorable, taking advantage of the tree using energy to sustain itself during drought or extreme weather. It moves into the roots, and symptoms of the host infection is similar to white rot fungus because of the degradation of lignin and hemicellulose, which are cell wall components. Gallia, which is bioluminescent, Melia, and Ostoyae are the 3 most common species of honey mushroom. Phytophthora ramorum causes something called sudden oak disease and has had devastating effects on oak trees, specifically in California and Oregon, but has been detected in 21 states due to the fungus being in nursery trees that were shipped across the country. Phytophthora ramorum is a water mold fungus that thrives in wet climates, making the coastal regions of the West a choice habitat for spore production and germination. One of the concerns for an area with long-term exposure to Phytophthora ramorum is a loss of tree biodiversity. For example, tan oaks, Gnatholithocarpus denisfluoris, is a prime host for Phytophthora ramorum and grows alongside the California redwoods, Sequoia sempervirens, which don't get infected. And when tan oaks die from the infection, the redwood continues canopy coverage, making it extremely difficult for the seedlings to grow back of the tan oaks, and as a consequence, cannot support the biodiversity associated with tan oaks specifically. Heterobasidion anosum is a parasitic polypore that causes something called anosis wood rot, which causes logging companies to lose around $1 billion a year. The mycelium of this fungus is not very mobile in soil, and it relies on either insects or spreads its spores, or spreads from the root systems of the tree. The root networks of the trees are very entangled and intertwined groves, making the spread of parasitic fungus through the root system a very effective means of transportation. A big problem with this is when a tree succumbs to complete infection and dies, many other trees in the same unit fall and die as well. This becomes a biodiversity issue at that point. Trees are like an entire solar system of biodiversity with billions and trillions of microbial life and birds, squirrels, owls, bears, insects, and so on. Last up is the velvet polypore, Phaeolus schwinnitzii. This mushroom is far less aggressive than the others mentioned above, and is still a very interesting fungus nonetheless. It typically likes coniferous trees like Douglas fir, Pseudotsuga menziesii, spruce, picea, hemlock, Pseudo heterophylla, and pinus. This fungus causes brown cuticle rot, eating the cellulose of a living tree. The only real treatment is to not plant conifers in a known infection zone. Side note about this polypore, it's used for making color dyes for wood. I would like to talk about a particular insect pest that personally hits home for me because it's been a major issue in my home state of Colorado, and I've seen it progressively get worse since I was a child, and that is the mountain pine beetle, Dendroctonus ponderosae. The big problem with this beetle is that not only is the beetle itself a danger to trees, but the beetle also carries spores of infected species of the so-called blue stain fungus. The beetle itself lays eggs underneath the bark, the court cambium layer, and this beetle disrupts the xylemic systems of the trees, causing a loss of nutrients and water flow throughout the tree by inoculating the tree with the blue stain fungus. The cause of the tree being unable to defend itself with its pine pitch. These infections typically slow down to manageable levels in the winter with colder temperatures, but with climate change, it makes the beetle seasons longer and with growing intensity. In my next video, I'm going to discuss this further and my thoughts on what should be done. Thank you very much for watching. Mushrooms help people, and fungi help the planet.